This book is chaos. Today's book review is The Tower of Living and Dying by Anna Smith Spark. This is the second book in the Empires of Dust series, and don't worry, I won't get into any sort of spoilers for the first book or even the second book. So if you haven't checked out the first book, you can still stick around and see if this is something that might interest you. They stood like statues before the oncoming charge, trident lances rushing up towards them, filthy with their comrades' blood. The darkness fell again. Metal flashed in the darkness. The thunder of hooves and the snorting gasps of breath. Coming, here. The dragon spurted fire, the crash of it like a breaking wave. You see through the eyes of 5 different characters. One of them's first-person POV, the rest are all third-person, but within those 5 perspectives you have 3 storylines, really. The first major storyline is about a conqueror who is going kingdom to kingdom, land to land, destroying and killing everybody. And I'm not sure he even knows why he's doing it, but he's doing it. And watching this conqueror character just show up to every place and kingdom and land and just annihilate stuff, or just declare war on everything and just be a terrible human being. It's really, I feel like, the heart of this story is this character who has so much internal conflict, because when this character is not at war, they're at war with themselves on the inside. Deep in there, they're going to battle with their emotions. The Conqueror character has some of the best scenes in the book because that character has the major battle scenes, and there's quite a few. There's also a Mercenary character who's on a mission to assassinate one of the other characters, and his whole journey is just stalking this other character and watching the madness unfold, and possibly getting swept up in said madness the whole time you're watching this character. And also when you jump to the perspective of the character he's stalking, there's this constant tension of like, will he actually succeed and assassinate this other character? The whole time it's like, oh man, he's gonna get caught or something, it's not gonna work out, and I'm worried. But at the same time, I don't know if I want him to assassinate this other character, because all the characters are written in such a way that it's like, I genuinely don't know who I want to win or who I want to succeed. And then the third and most interesting storyline, very surprisingly, and I say surprising because this third storyline in the first book wasn't nearly as interesting as it is in the second book. You follow a character who's basically trying to run a city. A lot of bad, crazy things happen in this city, and he's just really doing his best to keep everything from falling apart. Watching the ruler character try to survive and protect their family and make their city a better place is so stressful. Oh man, they are constantly just in a bad spot. I can't count how many times I was just like, well, what are they gonna do now? No one in their right mind would run into this. Never go up against a drink and drug-addled, death-obsessed, invulnerable demon. Old secret sellsword's wisdom, that. You might ask, well, who's this story for? This is a fantasy story that is absolutely for fans of Grimdark. These characters are morally ambiguous. They murder people and plot to kill people, and they do it a lot. So if that kind of thing will turn you off, this is not for you. In the first book, a baby gets murdered. In this one, there's a lot of animal death, like horses and whatnot, just getting slaughtered and played with. And if that's a deal breaker for you, this is not for you. You will straight up not have a good time. Some fans will immediately ask, is it actually Grimdark? It's almost a funny question at this point because everybody has a different answer as to what is Grimdark. My booktube friends, Slowly Read and Dark Portents, would absolutely agree that this is Grimdark, and the author, Anna Smith Spark, is known as the Queen of Grimdark. But just to be sure, let me ask an expert, my good friend, Grimdark Dan. What do you think? Is it Grimdark?
It's grim.
You know why you should subscribe? Because I have books on my socks. Boom. Now, one thing about this story is the characters. Each and every one is so conflicted. I feel like with every action, with every decision they have to make, all of these characters are so confused, conflicted, distraught, just, man. Every character is between a rock and another rock, and they're getting slowly crushed every second. You feel that as the reader. As the reader, it's kind of like, well, what are they gonna do now? And you could say that about each and every storyline here, whether it's the Conqueror who questions himself and then is supremely confident that he's just gonna wipe out everybody in his path, to him completely breaking down and thinking he's worthless, and man, he's really insecure. And then the ruler type character has an entire city to run. He makes decisions and then he regrets them. And then he doubles back around and thinks, no, that was the right thing. And I haven't even gotten to the man who's supposed to assassinate somebody. It seems like you can't go a chapter without him second guessing himself and being like, what the hell am I doing? Perhaps, Gallus, she loved her own life or another's more than that of the child. What would you kill, Gallus, he thought, if it kept you a little while longer alive? Answer me honestly, really, truly, honestly, deep down. This is a fantasy story, so naturally, you're gonna have magic. What kind of magic, you might ask? It's a soft magic system, meaning that the magic doesn't have hard-defined rules, so much as it's there, very present, and we don't totally understand how it works, but there's some powerful magic in this story. It puts you in a spot where you constantly have no idea what can happen. There's a big battle going on, then some magic happens, for better or worse. It's not like one character just has all the magic and that's it. There's quite a few very powerful characters and mages and magical creatures. Every time the magical element was brought up, I was blown away. I was like, what is happening? That's cool. Especially when it comes to like dragons and things like that. I'm a sucker for dragons. And I love how casually just weird mythical creatures are thrown in there. It's like, okay, well, what effect is this gonna have on the story now? And seeing them go into battle, and they most definitely do go into battle, is some of the coolest parts of this story. This is a fantasy world, your typical medieval fantasy setting, swords and sorcery. You might be saying, well, David, why are you wearing so many jackets when it's like 90 degrees in your room? And to that, I would say it's because I want it to feel like what the citizens of Sorlost felt like in the story. The city of Sorlost is hot as shit. It's a big city in the middle of a desert. And the person who's trying to run the city has to deal with many problems on top of being roasted by the sun the entire time. One of the biggest improvements from the last book to this book, how Anna Smith Spark has written these battle scenes. In the first book, there's only a couple major battles, and it's pure chaos because the Conqueror style character is a demon who makes everybody go crazy and kill each other. So there's not a lot of strategy. And in this one, he can't get away with that. He can't just show up and murder everything, which I was a little concerned, honestly. I was like, if this is how it's going to continue, it's going to get boring really fast. Luckily, it doesn't continue. In this one, he quickly realizes he's going to have to actually use some strategy, which makes the battles all much more exciting. When you include dragons and giant shadow creatures and other monsters and gods and mages and demons and cavalry and archers, and you have just so much crammed into a battle scene. That's one of the strongest points, I think, in this story. From a cloudless blue sky, it began to rain blood. The prose is lyrical chaos. It's bloody and violent. The prose that's written from each character's perspective feels so different and distinct. Now, me personally, I don't really have a preference as far as really lyrical, dramatic prose versus literal prose that doesn't get in the way. As long as it's done well and it works for the story, I guess I gravitate more towards the literal prose, but every once in a while I don't mind mixing it up with something more lyrical. And one of the perspectives in this story is very lyrical and over the top, and it just fucking works. Because that character is a very over-the-top, drug-addicted demon of a character. It just works. Now, rating this was kind of tough. With books in general, especially fantasy, the second book is typically stronger than the first because you spend so much time in that first book world building, right? You have to immerse the reader in this fantasy world with all these made-up characters and magic systems and all of that. So by the second one, the writer can really just tee off on the storytelling. But in this one, I actually liked the Court of Broken Knives better, where the chaos felt really cool and exciting in the first one. Here, it just left me with this constant feeling of, well, okay, but now what? I don't see how there could be a happy ending or a good ending, or all these characters are so terrible, but you root for each and every one, so it's like, if the third book comes out and all of the characters die except one, and you could pick anyone, I think I'd feel the same. I think I'd feel the same about it regardless, because they're all so flawed and just fucked up. And so I'd put this in the B tier of fantasy. It's a good and entertaining story for fans of Grimdark.